Something big is breaking in the motorcycle world. Three major brands are on the edge. One's bankrupt, one's bleeding riders, and one's pushing fans away. Layoffs, stock crashes, identity crisis. It's all happening now. This isn't a slump, it's a reckoning. These are the brands on the brink.
Harley Davidson, the king of the road, is running out of gas. There was a time when seeing a Harley Davidson on the road meant something. It was not just a motorcycle, it was a rolling symbol of rebellion, pride, and freedom. Every thunderous exhaust note announced that the rider was part of something bigger. For decades, Harley Davidson was not just a brand, it was a lifestyle. From long-haul touring across the heartland to city cruising with chrome gleaming in the sun, Harley defined the American motorcycle dream. And for many, that dream was affordable, accessible, and aspirational. But today, the legend is running out of gas.
Harley Davidson has slowly transformed from the working man's motorcycle into a luxury item that feels increasingly out of reach. Entry-level bikes that once allowed new riders to dip their toes into the Harley lifestyle are now priced like high-end sedans. Take the Harley Davidson Nightster, once seen as a more approachable model. As of the most recent models, a base Nightster starts at over $13,000 United States dollars. And by the time dealership fees and extras are tacked on, that number can balloon closer to $17,000 United States dollars. That is not even touching their flagship touring bikes, which regularly exceed $40,000 United States dollars before customization. For many younger riders or those just entering the world of motorcycling, these price points are not just high, they are unthinkable. It is not just pricing that is causing concern. Harley Davidson has long been known for its traditional air-cooled engines, beloved by purists for their sound and feel, but increasingly out of step with today's performance and emissions expectations. While the rest of the motorcycle world is embracing liquid cooling, ride modes, and advanced electronics, Harley has been slow to adapt. Most of its core models still rely on decades-old engine architecture, and for riders who prioritize performance, efficiency, or even reliability, that simply does not cut it anymore. Culturally, Harley Davidson is facing a crisis that money alone cannot fix. The brand's identity, once built around exclusivity, brotherhood, and rebellion, is becoming a liability in a marketplace that values inclusivity, versatility, and modern design. Younger riders are not interested in being part of a rigid subculture defined by leather vests, club patches, and an unspoken code. They want motorcycles that fit their lives, not ones that expect them to conform to an outdated image. Harley's insistence on preserving its old-school persona has increasingly made it look like a relic, not a leader.
Meanwhile, Harley Davidson is being undercut from both ends of the market. On one side, competitors like Honda, Yamaha, and even Triumph are offering high-performance, technology-packed cruisers and touring bikes at prices thousands of dollars lower than comparable Harleys. On the other side, Harley Davidson is being devoured by its own past. The used market is flooded with gently used, garage-kept Harley models from the past 10 to 15 years. Thanks to the brand's reputation for longevity and their often obsessive maintenance by owners, these used bikes offer nearly the same experience as brand new models, but at half the price or less. A used Harley Davidson Road Glide with low mileage can be had for around $15,000 United States dollars, compared to well over $30,000 United States dollars for a new one with similar features. For most riders, especially in a time of rising inflation and shrinking disposable income, the choice is clear. When an older Harley looks the same, sounds the same, rides the same, and saves you tens of thousands of dollars, there is little reason to walk into a dealership for a new one.
Adding to the pressure is Harley Davidson's rocky track record with innovation. When the company unveiled the Livewire electric motorcycle, it was meant to signal Harley's bold step into the future, a reinvention that would attract younger, environmentally conscious riders and shake off the company's aging image. But the execution was flawed from the start. Instead of pricing the Livewire competitively to appeal to millennials and Generation Z, Harley slapped a price tag of nearly $30,000 United States dollars on it. The result? Sales flopped, critics pounced, and the company eventually spun off Livewire as its own brand, distancing the Harley name from what was supposed to be its breakthrough.
Another missed opportunity was the rollout of the Revolution Max engine, a modern, liquid-cooled powertrain that had the potential to reinvigorate Harley's image. It powered the well-reviewed Pan America adventure bike and the Sportster S, both of which received praise for their handling, performance, and overall modern feel. Yet Harley failed to capitalize on the momentum. Rather than aggressively expanding the Revolution Max into its cruiser and touring lineups, the company kept the new tech in a small corner of its catalog. Most Harley-Davidson models continued to rely on the older air-cooled Milwaukee 8 engine platform. In short, Harley dipped a toe into modernization when it needed to cannonball in.
What is becoming clear is that Harley-Davidson is stuck in a painful limbo, torn between pleasing its loyal, aging base and attracting a new generation that is not interested in compromise. By holding on to its legacy too tightly, Harley risks becoming a brand that celebrates a past it can no longer replicate instead of building a future it desperately needs. And unlike its earlier crisis in the late 1970s and early 1980s, when tariffs and national pride helped bail it out, there is no cavalry coming this time. The market has moved on, and Harley's reluctance to do the same is dragging it toward the edge. There is still a path forward, but it will require Harley-Davidson to make bold, perhaps uncomfortable choices. That means offering true entry-level bikes at realistic prices. That means fully embracing modern engine platforms like the Revolution Max and phasing out outdated tech. That means fixing its dealership experience, which is widely criticized for pushy sales tactics, hidden fees, and lack of transparency. And perhaps most importantly, it means letting go of the past image and embracing a broader, more diverse riding community.
Harley-Davidson was once the undisputed king of the American road. It could be again, but only if it stops trying to be the Harley of yesterday and starts building the Harley of tomorrow.
But while Harley clings to its aging legacy, another brand tried to modernize and might have just burned itself doing it. Think Harley's done for? Drop a comment and hit subscribe to stay in the loop.
Indian Motorcycle, the comeback brand that got too controversial. Indian Motorcycle rose from the ashes with all the power and momentum of a brand destined to reclaim its former glory. Backed by the enormous resources of Polaris Industries, Indian did what many thought was impossible. It successfully re-entered the heavyweight cruiser and touring market with machines that felt both nostalgic and fresh. For a time, Indian became the ultimate comeback story in modern motorcycling, reviving a legendary name from the early 20th century and offering riders a compelling alternative to the aging icons of the industry.
But in early 2023, that upward momentum ran headfirst into controversy. On February 13th of that year, Indian Motorcycle issued an internal memo to dealerships nationwide announcing the official decommissioning of its iconic multicolor Native American headdress logo. While the brand had slowly begun transitioning to a monochrome version of the emblem in prior years, this move signaled a clear public break from the full-color image that had become synonymous with Indian Motorcycle's identity. The decision was presented as a step toward brand consistency and, most importantly, as a sign of respect to Native American communities. The memo emphasized Indian Motorcycle's desire to be a responsible steward of its namesake and to modernize its image while maintaining authenticity. However, many riders did not interpret the move as respectful or necessary. Instead, they saw it as a calculated corporate response to political pressure, one that sacrificed tradition in favor of optics. The backlash was immediate and deeply emotional. Riders across the country voiced their frustration online and in person. To them, the full-color headdress logo was not offensive. It was revered. It was not just a marketing symbol, but a vital part of the brand's visual identity. For a company named Indian Motorcycle, removing the most culturally iconic image tied to that identity while keeping the brand name struck many as disingenuous. The decision, even if rooted in good intentions, was seen by critics as a one-sided attempt to appease modern sensitivities while ignoring the values of the very customers who had supported the brand's return. The problem was not limited to backlash on internet forums or social media. Indian's dealership network, still relatively small compared to other legacy manufacturers, now had to offload large quantities of merchandise featuring the decommissioned logo. A 25% clearance program was activated, encouraging dealers to rapidly sell through all remaining inventory that featured the original design. For dealerships operating on tight margins, this created a logistical headache and a public relations minefield. Customers were coming in asking questions, expressing disappointment, or walking away entirely. The deeper issue for Indian was not just the logo itself, but what it represented: identity. Indian Motorcycle had built its comeback on a delicate fusion of old and new. Riders loved the bikes for their design and performance, but also for the spirit they represented. The multicolor headdress logo was one one of the few remaining symbols that tied the reborn company to its origins in the early 20th century. Removing that piece of visual heritage, especially without consulting the broader riding community, felt like a betrayal to some. It undermined the brand's promise to honor its roots. Compounding the problem was Indian's still growing infrastructure. Despite strong product development, Indian lacks the massive dealership reach and parts networks that older brands have built over decades. That means Indian must rely heavily on its emotional appeal, its story, and its perceived authenticity to drive loyalty and customer retention. When one of the most recognizable parts of that story is erased or altered, even subtly, it can fracture trust. This branding shift came at a critical moment. Indian had been slowly gaining favor with younger riders thanks to models like the Scout Bobber and FTR, bikes that combined aggressive style with accessible performance. But younger riders are not blindly loyal. They are skeptical of corporate storytelling and quick to detect any whiff of inauthenticity. If Indian appears to be bowing to public relations trends rather than embracing its unique legacy, it risks alienating the very riders it was working so hard to attract. Meanwhile, the company also risks alienating longtime motorcycle enthusiasts, those who lived through the brand's disappearance and celebrated its return. Many of these riders are older, patriotic, and deeply tied to motorcycle culture as a form of identity. To them, Indian Motorcycle is not just a brand, it is a symbol of American craftsmanship, history, and freedom. When that symbol is perceived to be compromised, they do not hesitate to voice their displeasure or take their business elsewhere. This is the tightrope Indian now walks. The decision to decommission the multicolor headdress logo may have been made with the best intentions, but it has become a flashpoint that raises bigger questions. Who is Indian trying to be? What does it stand for? Can it modernize without losing its soul? Can it evolve without alienating the very customers who brought it back to life? At this moment, Indian Motorcycle is facing a critical identity crisis. It is not about engine specs or price points. It is about meaning. A brand that built its revival on symbolism and heritage cannot afford to appear unsure of its message. It must find a way to articulate its values clearly, communicate with its base transparently, and decide what its future identity will look like, not just in logo form, but in spirit, product, and presence. If Indian fails to resolve this divide, the consequences could be long-term. Cultural trust, once lost, is hard to earn back. And in an industry where passion drives purchase decisions, any sign of inconsistency can be fatal. But if Indian is suffering from a branding identity crisis, the next brand is facing something even worse: total collapse. KTM, Europe's off-road giant, is on life support. It is hard to believe, but one of Europe's most respected motorcycle manufacturers has officially filed for self-administration. That company is none other than KTM, the once invincible Austrian brand known globally for its high-performance off-road machines, world championship dominance, and relentless innovation. This shocking announcement sent shockwaves through the global powersports industry, leaving fans, dealers, and investors alike asking, how could this possibly happen? The current crisis is not just a temporary downturn. KTM is facing a full-scale operational and financial breakdown. The parent company, Pierer Mobility Aktiengesellschaft, has seen its share price plummet by a staggering 84% in less than 12 months. This is not a small correction or a market hiccup. It is a collapse. Investor confidence has evaporated, and with it, so has KTM's financial safety net. In late November of the year 2024, the executive board of Pierer Mobility Aktiengesellschaft filed for self-administration, a legal maneuver that allows them to restructure under court supervision rather than face immediate bankruptcy. The filing came with a stark admission: the company could no longer secure the external financing it needed to operate. KTM was, and still is, burning through cash faster than it can generate it. The self-administration plan aims to buy KTM 90 days to restructure its debts and propose a recovery plan to its creditors. It is the corporate version of intensive care, and it has come with devastating consequences. Among the most immediate measures taken to stem the bleeding were widespread cost reductions, Production lines were paused, future development projects shelved, and layoffs were enacted. The company has already confirmed that it will lay off approximately 300 employees across its European facilities. These are not just factory floor jobs either. Engineers, logistics planners, product designers, and even motorsports staff are facing pink slips. For a company that only a few years ago celebrated record production and global expansion, this is a crushing reversal. So what went wrong? On the surface, KTM was still doing many things right. The brand had expanded aggressively in emerging markets, built strong racing credentials, and even acquired respected names like Husqvarna and GasGas under its parent umbrella. But success at scale does not always equal financial sustainability. And in KTM's case, its biggest strength became its most dangerous liability.
The problem is twofold: unsustainable growth and product line imbalance. In the early years of its global rise, KTM was famous for niche high-performance motorcycles. But as competition intensified and global demand shifted, KTM began targeting entry-level markets with smaller displacement bikes. That shift was strategic. It allowed KTM to appeal to newer riders in markets like India, Southeast Asia, and Latin America. But these beginner bikes, while popular, are also the least profitable. They come with razor-thin margins and require massive volume to make financial sense. That means high fixed costs, pressure on supply chains, and a dependency on uninterrupted demand. When those conditions collapsed after the global pandemic and inflationary crisis, KTM was left badly exposed. To make matters worse, macroeconomic pressures outside of KTM's control added even more volatility. Supply chain disruptions, part shortages, and rising material costs all worked against them. Higher interest rates made financing motorcycles more expensive for customers and financing operations more expensive for KTM. Consumer spending habits shifted away from big recreational purchases like motorcycles, particularly in Europe and North America, and KTM's traditional strengths in off-road competition did not translate well to the new, more cautious buying environment.
But perhaps the biggest oversight was internal. KTM overproduced. At its peak in recent years, KTM was manufacturing over 1,000 motorcycles per day. It built up inventory faster than it could move product, relying heavily on aggressive forecasts that failed to anticipate the economic cooling that hit by late 2023. Warehouses became overcrowded and the dealer network struggled to push bikes that customers were no longer willing or able to finance. The sales decline was sudden and brutal.
Even KTM's racing success could not reverse the trend. Winning championships might win headlines, but it does not guarantee unit sales, especially when consumers are looking for affordability, reliability, and strong resale value. While KTM was still excelling in the motocross and enduro worlds, it was losing ground in the urban commuter and mid-range segments where rivals like Honda, Yamaha, and Bajaj dominate with lower-cost, high-volume offerings.
And speaking of Bajaj, here lies another twist. Bajaj Auto, the massive Indian motorcycle manufacturer, was once a key stakeholder in KTM and played a critical role in helping the brand expand into Asia. But in the year 2021, Bajaj sold its shares to Pure Air Mobility Aktiengesellschaft, effectively ending its strategic partnership. In hindsight, that move may have been a serious miscalculation. Without Bajaj's manufacturing efficiency and cost-sharing benefits, KTM became more vulnerable to the very cost pressures it is now struggling with. Today, with the company under court-supervised restructuring, questions loom about KTM's long-term survival. Could KTM be acquired outright? Many analysts believe that is a very real possibility. Chinese giants like CF Moto, already in a partnership with KTM to co-produce bikes in China, could see this as an opportunity to gain full control of the brand. Similarly, Indian conglomerates like Hero MotoCorp or even a re-engagement from Bajaj could be on the table. These companies have the scale, cash flow, and emerging market dominance to scoop up KTM at a steep discount. And make no mistake, KTM still holds tremendous value as a brand. Its identity is globally respected. Its designs, race-winning platforms, and engineering DNA are worth a fortune in the right hands. But it will take more than brand equity to recover from this collapse. It will take hard decisions, ruthless efficiency, and perhaps the humility to hand over the reins to someone else. The next few months are critical. If Pure Air Mobility Aktiengesellschaft cannot convince creditors that KTM can emerge leaner and more competitive, the brand could face liquidation, or worse, be broken up and sold off in parts. While executives insist they will fight to preserve the company's legacy, the odds are stacked against them. 300 layoffs, an 84% share price collapse, halted production, razor-thin margins. KTM's road to recovery will be long, and the finish line is far from guaranteed. 3 brands, 3 different kinds of crisis, but one shared message. The motorcycle industry is being forced to evolve or go extinct. Which brand do you think survives? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more deep dives like this, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Thanks for watching. See you next time.